It all began with a single glance, too prolonged, too strong, and far more than a girl ought to experience. Hello, everyone. Emily here, recently turned 21. I was raised as an orphan and currently reside with my father. My mother's severe condition caused her to leave. Me and my dad alone, depending on each other. My father showed me a lot of love and attention during my early years. Robert is my dad, and he was both a mother and a father. Attempting to cover the voids caused by my mother's absence, life proceeded without incident until everything was turned upside down one terrible day. It all began when I turned 18. I'm starting college now. For me, that moment altered everything. Accepting my development and exploring the planet, I can still clearly remember how confused I was. The first time I left my beloved domicile, left my father's protecting grasp, to take on a new life full with obstacles. Back then, I was simply a girl, ignorant of the complexities of relationships and love. My spirit was full of innocence and a strong desire to discover. Eager to explore everything that university has to offer, everything seemed new and exciting at the beginning. I made connections with a ton of folks from all around the world, sharing treasured memories and tales among the loud conversation of the dormitories and the lecture hall. There were times when I really longed home. Every time I considered my dad, my heart ached with an unquenchable need. His portrayal of concern for me, relating tales about my mom. On calm nights, my mind kept replaying a mixture of grief and intense love. Before that tragic day arrived, everything was proceeding as planned. A day to remember. For me, that moment altered everything, completely altering my comprehension. It was a turning point in my adult life and put my ideals to the ultimate test. I was no longer innocent, leaving the girl behind who knew only happiness and ease. The day I embarked on my adventure, confronting difficult feelings and unforeseen circumstances head on, I made pals who, like me, were just starting college. However, they kept their distance from me. Unlike me, they weren't simply regular girls. They were well familiar with the bar scene, participated in exciting parties overall. They were aware of both males and girls. At school, we shared a small dorm room. Stories abound and laughter reverberates in a small area. First, I remained quiet and restrained in their world since I had no idea what I was doing. However, as time passed, I noticed that I was drawn to such activities. Weekend evenings. There was more bustle than ever before in our room. My pals wear cosmetics, choose their gorgeous gowns. Their phones were blasting lively music. Their eyes glistened with anticipation. Gradually but steadily arousing my interest, I was captivated by the excitement around parties and new experiences. Made me feel as though I had to go. First, I enrolled in order to investigate my search for a unique experience. My first time going out to a bar with them, I will always remember the flurry of bewilderment and enthusiasm. I entered a room filled with flashing lights, loud music, and raucous laughs. I stood next to them, savoring the drink my friend had made for me. A faint taste of bitterness appears in my mouth. Such evenings soon become commonplace. I began as a spectator and then jumped right into the colorful spectacle, holding hands with companions, laughing uncontrollably, and dancing madly. At first, I also learned how to drink from them. They were only little eyeglasses. Then, without hesitation, it escalated to downing the full glass. Late evenings with shaky legs and lots of laughs, we staggered back to the dorm, voices humming with amusing stories about our most recent travels. The fervor of liberation and disobedience gave me a renewed sense of vitality. I've changed from being that gullible girl. Since enrolling in college, I stepped beyond a line I never thought I would. From the parties, I fell in love right away. A hazy idea now becomes a reality. One day at a classmate's birthday celebration, made a new acquaintance. His eyes and grin made my heart race like never before. I sensed the unadulterated pulse of love. During the dead of night, we sent lengthy messages, shared personal stories and aspirations for the future. Love appeared out of nowhere, a moment of wonder that left me speechless. The first year of college went by in a blur of exciting. I was a bashful girl when I first came here, but I've changed a lot since then. Centered on learning and having modest aspirations, I started to enjoy infinite fun. Tasted the wine's harshness, I can feel the emotion in the song. As the first year came to an end, we split apart. Everybody carries a fragment of their memories and experiences with them. As our housemates left, there was silence in the dorm. Everyone is returning home for their summer break, the strange void that arises when there is no laughter, long tales in the dark await nighttime adventures, demonstrated to me how used to that way of life I had gotten. Everything began as soon as I returned home. I entered the home just now. My dad was glued to the TV when I saw him. He stared at the screen. I had no idea that I was back there seeing that moment. I came up with a cunning strategy to approach him and give him a nice shock. I walked forward one step at a time without saying anything as a surprise. Encroaching on him, my hand was on its way to my father's shoulder. He quickly whirled around to frighten him, grabbed my hand, and pulled me into his embrace. You came back silently. His voice had a pleasant resonance. We both burst out laughing. The atmosphere is electrified with delight and surprise. I looked at him, wondering whether he could detect my approach. When I asked, Dad pointed at the TV's adjacent mirror. I turned and saw what was causing it. Every move I made was reflected in the mirror. Telling him about my strategy from the start, I chuckled aloud since this discovery makes me feel both humiliated and amused. Dad laughed all the way through. His eyes gleamed with the affection and tenderness I was so familiar with. Following some enjoyable conversation and laughs, I sprang to my feet and told Dad I needed to return to my room and get my luggage. He smiled warmly and nodded in accord. I ran to the baggage claim, accepting the comforting coziness and peace of home, a place that holds memories and the affection my father had for me. Excitement was in the air throughout the afternoon, due to Dad's energetic attendance that evening. My dad and I started eating supper right away. In the quiet of the home, I began narrating the recollections. This last year's school days went very quickly, and we all laughed, exchanged amusing stories. Sometimes he would smile dryly. Looking lovingly at me, I recently came to a realization. My dad is quite attractive. He is now around 50. He still has a young man's body. He enjoys working out, and he maintains powerful muscles via his rigorous daily job. He only wore a tank top. Displaying his amazing muscles, I saw a flash of his power and beauty at that moment. And it suddenly hit me strangely. My eyes are glued to his when we locked gaze. Suddenly my mind went into overdrive. Suddenly my father's loud voice startled me out of my reverie. "What are you thinking about?" I smiled briefly in surprise. I gave a headshake. "Negative, I believe nothing." The father and kid grinned at each other. Their eyes glistened with delight. "Dad mentioned that you've only been in school for a year. You've changed a lot." I said, grinned, and nodded in accord. "You've grown up." That evening, when he lay in bed, Father A vision of my father's strong muscles came to mind. I'm confused by it. I never imagined I would think about my father for so long. Even with my eyes closed, the picture stayed with me. Tomorrow comes. The intense heat of noon was intolerable. Relaxing in the living room, sweat dripped down my back. Regardless of how hard I fanned with my hand fan, in the scorching heat, every blast of breeze disappeared. While he was working, I couldn't help but peek at Rob. Departed early to take care of business and returned by noon. The suffocating continued. Every single cell in my flesh is screaming. Can't stand it any longer, ready to ignite. I entered the restroom. The cool water brushed over my skin as it ran. The heat of my anger is swiftly dissipated by each drop of water. Increasing my degree of comfort, I was completely engrossed in that delightful sensation that I almost forgot about everything else in my surroundings. Remember to shut the bathroom door. Cool water poured down my back and shoulders. Each ocean wave stroked gently. Calming the flaming pain in my heart, I closed my eyes. Spreading that calm, the sound of the water rushing and my steady breathing filled the room. I thought back to the times I stole glimpses at Robert through the window, observing him concentrating intently on his task. His eyes were fixed on his every action. Since enrolling in college, something changed within me. My respect for him swiftly developed into a strong, unfathomable feeling. I had a weird feeling all of a sudden, causing me to awaken with a strong sense of being watched. I froze when I turned my head. He was back at the door, his eyes meeting Robert's. He fixed his gaze on me. Via the little gap in the partially open door, his face was a mask of inexplicable emotion and his eyes remained fixed, shock mixed with an inexplicable sensation. My chest pounded with my heartbeat. My legs felt like they were locked in place. My breathing became irregular. Tension crackled in the air. All that reverberated was the sound of flowing water. Every second seemed to drag on indefinitely. At that moment we both understood that we had gone too far. With my trembling voice, I broke the quiet. "Welcome back, Father." Robert jumped startled, as if he had just woken up from a dream. His eyes glistened with perplexity. He blinked quickly and frantically, looking around the room trying to find a purpose to be there. He held his luggage firmly. The rhythm of his hand made the strap tremble. "Oh, I'm very sorry." I didn't believe his voice was cracked and hoarse. He looked away, but it was impossible to hide the redness in his cheeks. Despite the little area surrounding us, we stood still. Water sprayed the air with a light-hearted jest. We were about to become forbidden. Every time a drop of water struck the floor, I gripped harder, giving the air a cool, pleasant feeling, battling to control the roiling feelings inside. A little wind blew through the partially open window. It gives me uncontrollable chills. This was a very embarrassing and unsupportable sensation. He gave me another look, and our gazes met. A hushed confession was shared. She quickly ran back to the living room after spinning around. There was stillness in the room, but my heart continued to beat quickly. Chaos whirls with confused ideas. I finally exploded out of the restroom. I was covered tightly in a towel. My wet skin is glistening with water. The room's misty vapor swirled and leaked. Merging with the scorching afternoon's intense heat, I entered the living area. My heart pounded at seeing him. Robert took a seat. His body was closely wrapped by his clothing. Sweat streaming down our eyes briefly met. Radin quickly ducked. It seemed impossible to look me in the eye directly. I've lost my innocence. A thrilling audacity swept through me. I smiled as I walked over to him. Every stride was infused with desire. Settling down just next to him, my cheek was fanned by his breath. There is hardly any gap between us. "Did you just catch all of that?" I muttered. My lips are half smiling as if this were a little story. Robert stiffened. In the living room, his brown eyes gleamed a flaming crimson. His face twisted as he tripped, looking shy and unsteady. Having trouble coming up with the appropriate phrases. "Father, father." "Nope," he murmured. His hands were on his shirt front. Concealing the growing stress, we looked at one another again, and I saw the battle start. The conflict between reasoning and emotion. "Don't avoid me," I said. For what seemed like a lifetime, my eyes were fixed on his. It seemed as though time had stopped in the gap between us. He swallowed, his parched lips opened to speak, then stopped. For both of us, the distinction between right and wrong was rapidly disappearing. Robert took a deep breath and his hands on my shoulders began to shake a little. He said, "This isn't going to work." More for himself than for me, his voice was low. Still, I persevered. Strangely, I felt a burst of power. His confused gaze swiftly swept over me. There was no obvious indication of rejection. Unable to resist, I lifted my hands and gestured toward Robert's face. I pulled him close and kissed Robert's trembling lips. He froze in amazement, but only for a little instant. His mouth moved in reaction. Our breaths entwined, delicate but fierce. Our unseen connection was no longer there. Robert rushed forward and tightly drew me in. He drew me into his hug, and I could feel his heartbeat thumping me. The external world disappeared. Nope, it's just us and the excitement of now. Every heartbeat pounded in my chest, and I could feel it. As Robert ran his hands through my damp hair, each wave of heat struck me. I ought not to have done it. He whispered again, but the anguish overcame him, and his voice was lost. No answer looked into his eyes, which glistened with the light of submission. A few seconds later, we were both deeply kissing, intensifying the kiss. All skepticism and reasoning permanently disappeared. From then on, all of our limits disappeared. Without hesitation, we threw ourselves into one another. The external world vanished. Over the next few days, our home became a haven. Getting rid of all uncertainties and fears every time he entered the space, his flaming eyes made my heart race. Every rapid breath was sensed by me. Each strong motion he made, he seemed to be attempting to inscribe his picture into my entire existence. At first, anxiety and the worry of being discovered persisted. Passion gradually, but surely, erased all worries. We were driven by intense desire. Each encounter provided an opportunity to delve deeply into our entwined feelings. He somehow managed to make me forget everything, putting me on a never-before-seen, thrilling high of joy. The home glowed brightly. No longer only a peaceful area, yet a glimpse of furious activity, uncomfortable time spent together. Every afternoon, the days passed quickly. The sun shone through the window. I awaited his return home. His footsteps awoke all of my senses. I felt a rush of eagerness, making my heart skip a beat. We didn't merely meet in the dark. During our mornings together, our intense gazes met. I couldn't turn back now that I was in love. We continued to do so, holding on to one another at all times, till I had my college degree. Time paused. It was only the two of us in that place exchanging the blazing secrets. I don't think I can go back to way things were before. My former existence was previously thought to be peaceful. Utterly enthralled with this fascinating friendship, I felt like a soul lost in a tornado of memories and feelings. Lost in doubt. What went wrong with the reflection? Will I ever be able to regain the simplicity and purity of those times? Will I ever be haunted by the wounds from those days? My recommendation is to remain vigilant and avoid giving in to temptations that may enter your life. From any angle, impulsive behavior can cause brief, joyous outbursts. Yet your future and peace of mind could be at stake. When you find yourself at a crossroads between emotion and rationality, think about whether the sacrifice is worthwhile. The fundamental principles you've set? Appreciate what you have, and carefully consider your options to prevent regrets in the future. Don't let short-term events cloud your long-term goals. Strong emotions can easily impair our judgment about what will happen in the future. The cornerstone of enduring partnerships is trust, sincerity. Every decision has an outcome. The hardest thing to fix is a persistent conscience. Think of the people in your social circle as your supporters. And you, don't let a passing urge cost you your tranquility. Emotions are breathtaking. However, if left unchecked, they might soon deceive you. Maintain your composure and confidence in every decision you make.